Today in class we talked about the text analyzer project, and we came up with these 3 different simple test cases for our requirements. We sort of solved the first one in class, and I've already pushed that out to GitHub. In order to keep us on schedule, I want to show sample solutions to getting numbers 2 and 3 done as well. And I want to start from the very beginning as if I'm just cloning this for the first time. So we can grab the project URL from GitHub. Easiest to grab it from here. And then back over in IntelliJ, I can say File, New, from Version Control, Git, paste in that URL, and this is going to be okay. I usually put my projects in a folder called Projects instead of Idea Projects. So, alright, that clones it, and it should then open it. I'm going to open it in this window. Alright, so now we're looking at the Simple Text Analytics project. I can open up my project view from here. And we can see this is just as we left it in class. Just cancel that message for now. And I can run all these tests. I'll right click and say run all tests. And that one simple test case that we have passes. So now I want to deal with the next case, which, looking at my task list, is to count the number of unique words, and the result should be 0. This will look very similar to the previous case. So remember, we're doing red, green, and refactor, so I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this, even though I know that's probably a DRY violation, but it's the refactor step where I will eliminate that. First I need to get to green, and I can do anything I need to do to get there. So this is going to be test empty string has 0 unique words. So here's my text analyzer. We're going to analyze the empty string. This time it's going to be unique words. That's the only part of it that doesn't compile. So I could hop over to my analysis object and add it by hand, but again, we have a tool here. The tool can do some of this grunt work for us. I'll press Alt Enter and then just choose Create Field Unique Words, and that's where it puts it. Now, technically, I don't need to put a final here now, but I'm going to go ahead and put one there because I know I'll want it there eventually, for the same reason that we put a final up here, that once we create an analysis, analysis is an output, it's a report, and so it doesn't make any sense for these fields to be mutable, so instead we'll make them immutable by making them final. And we'll initialize that to 0 as well, because that should make our tests pass. Yep, 2 tests passed. Very, very little code, but in fact this copy-paste is a problem because now I have a DRY violation. I have basically the same structure in 2 places. In fact, these 2 lines are identical in both places. So let's try to refactor this then. Easiest thing to do is probably to yank these out into some other method. And there is kind of a common approach for doing that. There's a very nice structure to unit tests that I like to use called given, when, then. And the idea is that you establish what you have going into a test, and then you identify what the action is that activates the thing you want to test, and then you say what your conclusions are. So let me show you what this looks like in practice. There's more than one way to do this, of course, but this is the way that I like to do it. So I'm going to pull this out and say, when analyzing the empty string, so what will that method look like? Exactly this, right? What this does is analyze the empty string. Now, this, you might look at this and say, isn't that a clean code violation? That's not a verb phrase anymore. And technically you're right, but this is one of those cases where there's a convention that is worth following. If we're using given, when, then as a format, it's worth breaking this rule because we're following an established convention. So when analyzing the empty string, we could wrap this into something like this. Then the number of words is 0, and stick that into its own method like that. I'm not sure that really gains us a whole lot compared to having the assert, but maybe it's more poetic to put it this way. Now, of course, this won't compile because here I'm referring to a variable analysis, which is not within this scope. So I'll promote the scope of this here to be object level. So now this produces an analysis, and my then case uses that analysis. So that looks pretty good, and easy to run these tests again to make sure they still pass. So to get rid of the actual DRY violation, the actual redundancy, we can replace this with when analyzing the empty string. And again, for the sake of poetic structure, we can do something like this. Then the number of unique words is 0. And again, I run these tests. Notice that I'm following the step-down rule, an important rule out of clean code. So the private methods are declared in the order they're called from, and right underneath the method that calls them. So again, whether you want to wrap up this assert within a then, a method worded as then, that's up to you. I'm going to leave it in here just as an example, but I'm not going to say that it's necessarily better than the alternative. Importantly, I got rid of that DRY violation, so my tests now each just have a when and a then, and there's no given here because there's no other setup. There's nothing to set up before we run the test, which is good. So again, tests pass. We're in a good place. We could do a commit here. We could add the next case. Let's go ahead and do a commit. I like lots of little commits. So this is going to be, I'll put my name in here. And let's see. I think I will actually cancel this. Let me look at the log and try to remember how I worded the other one. I said allow 0 words, allow counting 0 words. Okay, so let's name this other one similarly. Go to our local changes and commit these. Choose my name. Allow counting 0 unique words in the empty string. Good. Okay, go back to our to-do list. This deals with word frequency, giving us an empty map. So I'll go back in here. Now from the get-go, I can use my when method. Let's see, test empty string has empty frequency results. When analyzing the empty string, then there is nothing in the frequency result. So previously I refactored to given when then, but now that I have that structure in place, that should be okay. So what is this going to look like? We'll say analysis.frequency. There's a convenient method in the map class, I think, called isEmpty. If that doesn't work, we'll find out soon. So all right, we'll create that field. Oh, look at that. Somehow it inferred Hashmap, which isn't quite what I want. Hashmap is an implementation type, but the type here that matters is that it is a map. We use the interface type map. It's a map from string to integer. I'll use Alt-Enter to import that. That's in java.util. And this, let's see, that should be enough that these tests fail. Yeah, because we get a null pointer exception. So similar to these cases, I need to initialize this to be an empty map. And that's why I use an implementation type like Hashmap with nothing in it. I think this can infer the types, can't it? No, I guess not. Okay. Great. Run that. And my tests all pass. So I'll commit that. So I could make a brand new commit, but I know I mentioned this in another video. I'll just amend that previous commit to say that we're allowing counting 0 unique words and empty frequency map in the empty string. That message is getting a little bit long. That might be more than 50 characters, but I think we'll be okay with that for now. So what this will do is just amend the previous commit. If I look at the log, now I can see here's what we had at the end of class, and here's the commit that I just made. So there's an important piece here. Once I push this to GitHub, you can pull or clone the repository, and you'll see that you have these 3 different commits. But maybe you want to try this step yourself, and so you want to go back to an older version. Well, that's one of the advantages of version control systems. So from the log, I can grab any arbitrary version of the project and right-click and say check out revision. So now in my workspace, I'm looking at that version of the code. I'm looking at what it looked like then. Head here is what you're currently working on. So this says that my head, where I am currently working in my workspace, is actually this commit. So I could tinker around here, try some other things, and then if I want to get back to the tip of the repository, get back to the most recent version, I just have to check out that version. Notice head moves up here, and now that's the version that I'm working with. Actually, it's doing something kind of funny here where it's, instead of giving me the branch here, it's telling me the commit number. So I would probably use this to say switch to this master. There, that's what I like to see there, get master. Soon we'll talk about feature branching and how we can use multiple branches. For now, it's sufficient to have all of our work be on one branch. All right, I hope that was interesting to you. We will probably continue with this next week.